You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC out of Indianapolis. Wherever you're joining us around the country, you have most likely heard the name Sean Diddy Combs. Of course, a famous artist who one might wake up in the morning feeling like. But alas, putting Kesha aside for just a moment, there are a huge number of people that are waiting upon the verdict in a extremely massive superstar lawsuit. 5 counts. Count number 1, racketeering conspiracy. Count 2, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. Count number 3, transportation to engage in prostitution. Count number 4, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. And count number 5, transportation to engage in prostitution. There are 2 of those specific counts in the count 2 and 3, and then count 4 and 5. Now, the jury appears at this point in time to have come to an agreement on counts 2, 3, 4, and 5. What the jury has not decided on, at least in a way, they've come to a mixed verdict on a partial verdict excluding count 1. Now, count 1, racketeering conspiracy, that's the RICO charge. So that's the idea that you're going to build a criminal business upon the backs of your illegal activities. Now, this RICO charge is used to do a lot of different things in the federal prosecution sphere. But the judge in the particular Sean Diddy Combs case has not allowed the jury to come out with verdicts on counts 2 through 5 and then say count 1 they're undecided on. So the judge has sent the jury back to deliberate and then reportedly has dismissed for this evening. Now, this has been a wild trial for a couple of reasons. Number 1, what Sean Diddy Combs has allegedly done, or I should say, according to some of the testimonies from his lawyers, had done, was hold these freak-offs in which he would rub himself up and down in metric tons of Johnson & Johnson baby oil, or Kirkland baby oil, I guess, from Costco, and would then do a lot of really horrible, terrible, evil things in the form of wild sex parties in Hollywood. Now, you say, why is this news? We all know this about Hollywood. Well, that's true. You and I know this about Hollywood. The average American is quite up to date on the debauchery that goes on in California. And not just in Gavin Newsom's office. These Hollywood parties are a very disgusting thing. They've been going on for ages, and they have resulted in a lot of people coming out in the last couple of years against the amounts of sex trafficking and rape and drug trafficking and all other kinds of really horrible situations. The issue with Sean Diddy Combs here is that a lot of people were involved in these particular freak-offs and chose to stay silent about it for a very long time. So depending on how this racketeering charge ends up, it was always going to be kind of a risky move saying that this was some kind of a federal, kind of a mob charge almost. But if the RICO charge lands here and the jury comes to agreement that he is guilty for this RICO charge, then that opens the doors for a lot of other stars in Hollywood that you and I either grew up listening to if you're a millennial, or that you listened to with perhaps grim patience as an older member listening to the show. Well, maybe a lot of other people might be brought up on charges because once the RICO doors are open and you get a conviction, it is extremely difficult to close them. That's why, again, with the RICO charge in regard to Trump and Georgia earlier on in the 2024 election campaign, it was such a serious thing to bring Trump up on a RICO charge, because if you can get a person like Trump or a political official on RICO, you can get at least 50 other people because of how many people are involved at the top echelons of some kind of a political campaign. So for Sean Diddy Combs, everyone gets investigated. We're talking like the Billboard Top 100 becomes just mugshots. So we'll keep you guys up to date on that. It doesn't appear that the judge wants to, again, allow that to be kind of a partial conviction. It is likely, and I just from my analysis here, it is likely he's guilty on counts 2 through 5. It's very difficult to suggest that he wasn't engaging in sex trafficking by coercing individuals, which is what the sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion part means, coercing individuals to be a part of these freak-offs against their will. And also transportation to engage in prostitution. If you send a limo driver to go pick up paid whores, yeah, that's not allowed. Even in Nevada, there are very strict rules on such. So that said, let's drop over to the other breaking news from today. The President of the United States has announced that Israel has agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize a 60-day ceasefire with Gaza. So again, massive developments over here. The man brokered a peace deal between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda, brokered a ceasefire between a peace deal between India and Pakistan, brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, destroyed Iran's nuclear facilities, and now looks like he might be getting ready to broker a 60-day ceasefire between Israel and Gaza. So we'll keep you up to date on that as well. Additionally, more news fresh out of the administration today. Total Border Patrol encounters for the entire month of June 2025 was 6,070. That is less than a single day under the Biden administration. So for the entire month of June, the total number of encounters Border Patrol running into those trying to immigrate illegally into the United States was 6,070, 6070. In the Biden administration, every single day of his entire 4 years, there were more than 6,000 border encounters per day. That's insane. That's insane. And by the way, I should also mention that of those 6,070 encountered, 0 were released into the United States. 0. Now, we're going to get into the media on this a little bit later with actually Michael Duncan over from the Ruthless team. But first, before we even dig into that, we have to talk about one of the biggest wins for the Trump administration. And this is a university capitulation, a complete and entire capitulation from UPenn. The University of Pennsylvania has agreed to a Title IX resolution regarding its policies on trans athletes and women's sports. Of course, the Trump administration came in and said Title IX now says the traditional definition of Title IX is restored, and therefore women are going to be given places in women's athletics. Men are going to be given places in men's athletics. You cannot mix the two because men and women, breaking news, very different. Now, a lot of universities decided this was the time to fight. Now, the other side of this, unfortunately, I will say, is that you have a lot of universities trying to kind of manipulate different terminology and create special rules and circumstances. This is what's likely going to get California sued by the federal government by saying we're just going to include an extra spot for women to compete alongside men, as Gavin Newsom is trying to do. And there's also some incredibly good news. The incredibly good news out of this is that UPenn has completely capitulated to these Title IX demands. And they have agreed to, number one, restore the records and titles to affected female swimmers. This is the Riley Gaines and the Leah Thomas situation. Leah Thomas, this dude, whose real name is William, didn't get a bunch of surgeries, just decided one day he was going to pull his singlet a little bit tighter and then hop into the swimming pool and talk a little bit higher. And then proceeded to destroy the women in the swimming competition. So the University of Pennsylvania, UPenn, has announced that they are going to give all records and titles back to female swimmers. So William Thomas does not get to be the queen, the whatever you want to call it, the hermaphroditic victor of the University of Pennsylvania's record system. Now, also, they're going to adopt biological definitions of male and female and issue personal apologies to female swimmers. Here is Secretary of Education Linda McMahon from the top rope, no pun intended, on the University of Pennsylvania.
The university will be sending a personal apology to every female athlete who was forced to compete against a man.
And that is, in fact, a major, major victory. Now, I will say that Linda McMahon's had a couple of very important victories. Of course, she was exuberant over the Supreme Court's ruling on Mahmoud versus Taylor just the other day.
The Supreme Court ruling in Mahmoud versus Taylor is not only a win for religious liberty, but parental rights. Parents have the right to know what their children are learning at school and to exercise their First Amendment freedom of religion to opt out of divisive and ideological lessons that go against their family's values and beliefs. The court rightfully held that schools cannot shut parents out or disregard their religious obligations to their children. We are proud to see families, not bureaucrats, reclaiming their role in raising their children according to their sincerely held religious beliefs.
Now, the left is losing their minds, and I do mean losing their mind. They're just complete upheaval over this. We're going to have to touch on that with the radio crew here in a minute after commercial break. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. The rest of the Trump administration right now is focused on the big, beautiful bill. Now, we brought on Representative Keith Self down from Texas 3rd Congressional to talk about some of the intricacies and what the House is actually going to be doing on this here in just a little bit. But first, because after we recorded that interview, the Senate right away passed the big, beautiful bill. Now it is officially in the House. So later on, when you hear us talking, it's going to sound like it's in past tense. But rest assured, the stuff that he talks about regarding the House decisions are very much in play. The left is freaking out. A few members of the right are freaking out. No one, however, is quite as upset as Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, who appears to look like a Yorkshire Terrier who has just sniffed cocaine.
Leaving the Senate now, at the end of the vote, when the Republicans won, they cheered. They cheered over taking away health care from around 17 million people. They cheered over giving huge tax breaks to a handful of billionaires. They cheered over running up the national debt by another $3.5 trillion. You know, this bill, it's bad. It's bad economically. It's bad morally. This bill is just wrong. But we stay in the fight. We stay in the fight. We stay in the fight. And we proved why we stay in the fight, because actually there are pieces of this bill that we got better. We got the tax on solar and wind knocked out, and that's going to help with clean energy.
That did not, in fact, get knocked out.
Got a few different pieces and made them better. So that's reason number one, is always the reminder. All of those calls mattered.
They did not.
Reason number two is it's still not over. The bill has now got to go back over to the House.
It is, by the way, mostly over. And we're going to talk about why that is. The core reason, and again, you actually see this with Representative Keith Self here in just a little bit, who points out that eventually, Republicans are going to get this thing passed through because the Trump tax cuts are already baked into the economy. They have to get through. A lot of people don't like this bill. A lot of people are trying to claim that this is some kind of a terrible, horrifying disaster that was completely unexpected. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is every single day showing herself to be one of the goofiest members on the right, called into Steve Bannon and described this as a bleep show.
We're taking a Medicaid away from American citizens and maybe still paying for illegal aliens. Is the House going to rubber stamp this? Is it going to be like a 24-hour turnaround? Ma'am?
I cannot imagine. No, I can't imagine they have the vote. There's no way that Johnson has the votes in the House for this. We're supposed to be back Wednesday morning to start voting at 9 a.m. And then also given the fact that there's 435 members of Congress and it's hard for us to get to an agreement on anything. So this whole thing is, I don't know what to call it. It's a show.
Okay, so there are not 435 members of the Republican majority. So the math ain't mathin'. And number two, Johnson has actually pulled off more victories with the slim margin that he pulled for. And if you want more members of the House, then perhaps Marjorie Taylor Greene openly endorsing and pseudo-campaigning for goofball members of the House that aren't getting elected to the House of Representatives, that are losing easily winnable elections. Just saying, maybe if you want more Republicans, don't put forward the worst Republicans for elections. Just saying. Now, that aside, Elon Musk is also very unhappy about the bill. He's threatening, launching brand new parties, and he's threatening that, I guess, just post more memes. President Trump isn't having it because, again, Elon Musk is most upset now about the EV mandate. So in this particular bill, there was a lot of subsidies put forward for electric vehicles and a lot of other Green New Deal nonsense like solar panels and wind turbines, and Republicans scrapped it because it's ridiculous that there should be subsidies for programs that have not proven themselves. They should be able to stand on their own. And Elon Musk came out and said, this is really bad. And Trump has, in his boisterous way, threatened to have Doge look into Elon Musk. again, individuals who believe every single time that Republicans in this Congress are going to turn around and, bring forward some kind of net zero bill, they're fooling themselves. They are fooling themselves. Now, there's some real fear mongering over this particular bill, and that comes from the dude in a skirt from the great state of Delaware. We're going to talk about that in a second. Got to get the radio crew back. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
So the fear-mongering, getting pretty wild, getting a little bit much. Both on the left and a smidge of the right. This comes in a couple of different ways here. Number one, I will say that the Trump administration has been making good on a lot of promises, even made since the start of his term. One of these is that Marco Rubio has officially announced that the wondrous, amazing, incredible, beautiful USAID, funneling money all over to everywhere except you, is essentially shutting down, and no more money is going to be coming out of it. Again, this is the reason why the Supreme Court's decision to destroy universal injunctions by federal judges is a good thing. Rubio can now come out as the Secretary of State, which is over USAID, and he gets to say, no more money for anyone. And presto, Judge James Boasberg or Gripey McCat Lady out in Colorado can't say boo. Now, Chuck Schumer has, come out with some very interesting statements about this as well. If it's USAID, what else could be on the chopping block?
We also know this is just the beginning. If DOJ attacks USAID today, then you can be sure they'll move on to another target tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the Postal Service or the IRS or even the Social Security Administration.
Promise? Promise? Because I got to tell you, that ain't sounding too bad for me. Now, that was actually kind of one of the more moderate criticisms of what's currently going on. Representative Sarah McBride, has decided that this particular bill making its way through the House is going to result in just the deaths of millions of people.
I know there is a lot going on in the news right now, but I need everyone, I need all of us to focus on the big ugly bill right now, this week. There's a lot going on. We have a lot of takes on a lot of important issues, but we all need to be sounding the alarm because I cannot overstate just how dangerous and deadly this legislation is. It is perhaps the most heartless bill that has been seriously considered in Congress in decades.
He has no idea what other bills have been put forward before Congress that are extremely heartless in decades. That is 100% hyperbolic right there.
Millions will lose health coverage.
Millions of whom? Millions of whom, Tim? Would you say millions of illegal immigrants that don't deserve federal tax dollars for medical coverage, perhaps? Because Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri made sure that was snuck right on through under the nose of parliamentarian McDonough. Millions of people. And then, of course, here we go. We're gonna say,
Seriously considered in Congress in decades. Millions will lose health coverage. People will die.
People will die. Now, I'm still dying from net neutrality. I'm also still dying from the last time this budget was passed, everyone was going to die. Just death all over the place. People are going to be dropping like flies, illegal and undocumented flies, apparently.
Millions will lose food assistance.
Oh, millions will lose food assistance. No. Millions will be required who are able-bodied to prove that they are disabled before they take SNAP and, food stamps. You actually have to be disabled in order to take disability. I mean, a crazy concept.
People will see skyrocketing energy bills that they cannot afford to keep up with.
Not a remote shred of data for that.
All because of this bill, and all to just partially pay for tax breaks for billionaires.
Again, and I'm shocker, the guy who has no idea what gender he is. Has no concept of even left-leaning institutions, like the Brookings Institute, for example, has pointed out that the Trump tax cuts overwhelmingly favor lower and middle-class Americans. There are not major tax breaks for the rich. Like, you've been told, the billionaires are all going to be benefiting from the... No. Just not in the bill. In fact, this is a more progressive tax plan for the vast majority of this country than most of the social democratic countries of Europe. Or should I say the socialist democratic countries of Europe. So a good swing and a miss there from Representative Sarah McBride. Now, the best parts of the freakout is that it's happening over a number of things. So when we talked about the Supreme Court decision regarding the LGBTQ plus 2IA stuff, essentially saying teachers do not have a right to force children to read books about transgender mice falling in love with gay frogs. I'm afraid that's no longer allowed without letting parents know so that they can opt out. So some teachers have decided to make essentially Green Day emo emotional teenage rage videos to say, we're still gonna fight 'em, man.
So parents can now pull their kids from lessons that have LGBTQ.
I do love the punk music in the background. He's gonna fight the system, man.
Components. All right. You know, as a teacher, I don't give a shit. Because I'll just give them an assignment that basically covers, like, America descending into fascism or hypocrisy, and I'll use Trump and the Republicans for that.
Again, not actually as a former teacher and administrator. My core concern here is, why aren't you sticking to the standards? I'm trying to find which historical, literary, scientific, mathematic course in whatever state he's from or Commonwealth has the standards listed that say, oh, this week you got to teach about gay sex. Tomorrow we're going to teach about fascism and hypocrisy. And Wednesday, the second law of thermodynamics. I'm not seeing it. But of course, you know, political theater, I suppose.
Like, I don't f***ing care. I'll go after
That's why you made this video.
them anyway. I'll just give them a lesson that hits even f***ing harder.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Come on, guys. Think outside the box. We're teachers. We can make anything happen with a pack of gum and, you know, a number 2.
Nothing says think outside the box like, if you don't let me teach exactly what I want, then I'm just gonna lose my mind. Okay, great. This also is a favorite regarding the new ICE detention facility down in Florida, which has been called affectionately Alligator Alcatraz. So 45 miles west of downtown Miami on an abandoned, I shouldn't say abandoned, on a very low traffic airstrip. And looking at the drone footage of the area, it's not like in the deep Amazonian jungle, as has been portrayed, surrounded by all of the alligators and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. And it's just going to be horrible. No, I'm afraid that's not the case. That hasn't stopped the social media videos, however, from the influencers announcing that death is upon us. Here we are. The Nazis are here.
You're calling it Alligator Alcatraz. Are you kidding me? If you missed it, Trump is headed to a low-cost immigrant detention camp built by Ron DeSatan in the Florida
Ron DeSatan. Okay.
Everglades. According to Triple K Caroline, quote, the only way out is via a one-way flight, and it's surrounded by dangerous wildlife. You cannot be serious.
Wow, a prison that doesn't let people escape? My God, the horror. Clearly, the only way to do prisons is if you let everyone run amok and just like have a revolving door in there like in Los Angeles. That's clearly the move. Radio crew, we'll see you in a second. We're going to be back in with Michael Dunklin at Ruthless. It's the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett cast. Now, this guy does get a little bit better because, of course, these videos never go downhill. They only get more intense.
Listen, I know most maggots are 10-watt bulbs in 200-watt sockets.
10-watt bulbs in 200-watt sockets. I'm not a professional electrician. I've never claimed to be. 200-watt sockets. 200. Okay.
But let me see if I can make this crystal clear for you. A large concentration of folks deemed undesirable by the government.
They're not deemed undesirable by the government.
Put in a camp with no due process.
That is, in fact, why they're being put in that camp, for due process. They're not going to stay there forever. The reason that these camps exist is because we need to put them in a place to determine whether or not they meet the standards to be shipped wherever. They're not citizens in this country. So while we wait to process them for due process, see, that's that the word process means there, while we process them for where they are to be sent to, whether it be South Sudan or Zimbabwe or El Salvador or just dropped off at the border at Mexico, wherever it is, you have to put them in a place. I don't remember these kind of videos when Barack Obama had his cages set up.
If only there were some historical similarities there. Oh, wait, they might as well right. Hard work will set you free above the entrance.
Hard work does not set you free. Coming into this country legally, in fact, sets you free.
And oh yeah, as for the whole low cost and efficiency thing, the expected spending on this is $450 million to intern 1,000 people.
Yeah, you're right. I actually agree with this one. Do you know the real answer? If they are not citizens of the United States, just dump them. That's a lot cheaper. You know, I mean, I'm just going to point out for the boys, girls, and squirrels over at home. So every single time they try this nonsense, it only looks worse. Now, funnily enough, the left is not the only cringy group on this. Joy Reid, who is, the left is not the only group that's completely cringy on this one in particular. Joy Reid, who has apparently left the Democratic Party and is now an independent, wink, wink, has also decided to claim this is super Hitler ultra concentration camp land.
I had to forget about him, but Ron DeSantis is still governor of Florida. He took the Comfy Couch hosts on a tour of the concentration camp that he's building in Florida in order to round up brown people, and throw them in a camp.
Ah, yes. It's all about rounding up brown people. It can't be that they do or do not have the legal right to be in the United States. Now, on the right, there are some people that are being just as cringy. Benny Johnson, who is known for stealing other people's work and not citing them, and also just being a really cringy broadcaster. He put out this video today, and it hurt me on the inside because, my God, how lame.
What's up, guys? This morning, we are locked and ready to go.
Good morning, guys. Like and subscribe to my latest Minecraft video.
Out in the Everglades, we are on our way to Alligator Alcatraz. We've been seeing alligators all along the road, actually. I've seen like 30 of them.
Locals have pointed out, no, you do not just drive through open highways in Florida with alligators just waiting outside the roads, like hosting a little roadside barbecue. That's not a thing.
We've been driving out. Today, get ready. We're going to bring you along with the president as he visits America's newest detention facility for criminal aliens, this time surrounded by alligators. We're going to be bringing you with us. Get ready. It's going to be an incredible day. I'm very excited for it. Here we go.
Okay. You don't have to do that. Again, it can be a really cool move without posting whatever that is. Now, the media is really struggling over this. We're going to talk about this with Michael Duncan. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC, joined by one of the four guys over from Ruthless, Michael Duncan. Cavalry's doing some phenomenal work out there in DC. I mean, it's just the truth. When you see how embarrassed people are consistently, you got to ask who's responsible for that, because it's not always self-humiliation. You got to actually, have a finger on the pulse. And so we've got on Dunks to talk about it a little bit today. So thanks for joining us, man.
Of course. Thanks for having me. It's fun to be able to do two jobs at once. We're doing the consulting side of thing, working, to elect Republicans across the country, and then also have our podcast, Ruthless, as sort of an outlet. It's sort of our therapy session at the end of at the end of days, so you can put something in the microphone, and get out all that frustration from everything that's happening in Washington. And there's a lot.
That's a really good point, because I do that with social media accounts. I've never really thought of it that way. I have a satire account and then my main Twitter account, just so that I can kind of separate the venting. But I guess that in consulting work, when you're trying to tell people this is how you win elections, this is how you connect to the average American, there's such a disconnect oftentimes, not just with politicians and their constituents. I don't mean it that way. But there's a disconnect between what the average American knows and what everyone else is aware that they know. Like CNN's out this morning trying to tell everyone that just because Zoran Mamdani wants state-run grocery stores, that doesn't make him a communist. I mean, come on. Like the average American was asleep through those 12 years of history class we all took.
Yeah, you know what I also love about doing this show is you can, have a conversation with your audience about stuff like that. And so it allows you to keep your finger on the pulse of how your average American views these things, and you don't get stuck in this bubble, of New York or Washington, D.C. The way that some of the people in media talk about politics is so out of touch. Tony, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we started the show to begin with, was it was during COVID, and DC's totally locked down. They're burning cop cars outside of our office. You're a block and a half away from the White House. And so you're locked in your house, and you're trying to work on campaigns, and you're playing phone tag, and then you're just consuming tons of cable news every single day. And you're watching people talk about the thing you do every day as your job, and it's sort of like we always say politics and sports are the two things where everyone has an opinion on it, right? Whether they've played the game or not. And so it got incredibly frustrating. And so, we started the podcast. So it was like, finally we could have a microphone and at least have a conversation with the audience where we're like, hey, that's real. What they're talking about there is right. What this person's talking about, that's absolutely wrong. Here's how it actually works.
I think there's a lot of value to that beyond just the kind of the media side of it. You see a lot of the influencer game now is just about driving engagement. It's just about make sure to like and subscribe, all that stuff. And of course, there's elements of trying to increase engagement. But I think that, again, you're being a Hoosier as well. There's a fundamental understanding that it's fun to actually engage with the audience. And that kind of trumps the I'm just trying to make the numbers go higher. Right. It's that concept that really does have a vibe and an energy that I'd say to a lot of the revivification, to pull a uselessly long word into the conversation here, into the American political system. We've got more people that are getting involved. They're keeping an eye on things. Did a bird just fly into the window? What on God's green earth? Sorry about that. It's never happened before.
Hey, that's show business.
Again, the studio's in rural Indiana, and sure, we'll cut that out. Absolutely. There's such a reaction into getting into politics again. People are paying attention. It's not just the older folks on Facebook, was the joke. And it's exciting because now what we get to do is show them all of the things that maybe for a few years only we were noticing, or at least only we had maybe the microphone to be noticing.
Yeah, I think that's right. You're seeing a lot of young people get involved in politics. A lot of that's driven, I think, through social media. But it's a double-edged sword, to the kind of the point you were making earlier. The incentive structure of social media is engagement, right? And so that, I think, ends up causing a lot more outrage politics, and where folks don't necessarily have to know what they're talking about to drive that engagement. And so it's a constant education process with people, I think, in that regard. That being said, I mean, it also has democratized politics in a major way. You don't have to go to the New York Times to get information on what a bill is or does or says, right? You can go to social media. You can find, alternative media sources to find your information. I think on the balance, that's good for politics.
I would say that, that's an interesting word, democratize politics. I think that it's just fractured a lot of people who thought they were always going to have the reign over the roost. A lot of people believed they were just going to have this forever. No one was ever going to be able to touch their precious little kingdoms. And I'm trying to scroll through my feed here to see if I have which right. Was it which outlet was it that named, according to a large poll, that more people are getting their news? Yeah, it's from the Daily Mail. Now a top source for news and information, according to a national survey of 1,000 likely voters, Ruthless and Joe Rogan are like some of the top news sources for dudes these days. I mean, that's got to feel pretty great.
It feels great. It's fantastic. I would love to take credit for that. But the reality is, I think the reality is the mainstream media has spent, the last 10 years just destroying their own reputation. And so I think
it's the how though, right? Because this is where we can get into the kind of the patting on the back. We can say, oh, well, it was just because they were really, really mean and stinky and horrible people. Do you ever get the feeling that when you were growing up, you thought people were going to be a lot less lazy? Like the way your teachers talked to you, everyone was always going to be like trying their best and like adults all had it together. You get into this business and you're thinking, how did they just run that chyron? Did they read it before they put the lower thirds on the screen? And the answer is no. I mean, I'm sorry, that boggles my mind. Every single day I look at some of these coastal news organizations and I'm wondering what college radio stations staffed these crews. It's horrible.
Well, I think it has to do with what they think their mission is, right? It's not about having information that people want. It's driving an agenda, and this comes through academia into the journalism profession on the coasts. These people get into a newsroom and they have an agenda to push. And so it's laziness, but it's really not laziness. It's like, I want to agree with it, so I'll run it.
Like Tim Walz's campaign argument. He would say, well, when you get in the heat of passion, sometimes you say things that are a little less true. And he's like talking about his military service record, or he's talking about his policies. And it's like, what? I've never gotten so passionate that I've like started making up stories to my wife about why I did or didn't do something. That's a great way to get hit by a car.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just think about the last 10 years, everything from, Russiagate, and then the impeachments of Donald Trump, COVID, right? The Hunter Biden laptop. We're talking about huge, huge stories that impacted every American in this country. And the mainstream media got it wrong, and they got it wrong on purpose, right? And so, they just destroyed their reputation over that period of time. And I think it's been to your benefit and mine.
Well, that's true. But this is one of the things that it keeps me, I wouldn't say keeps me awake at night, because I have no problem sleeping with the current way the country is being run. It's a wonderful, refreshing change. One of the things that does keep me trying to stay maybe not ahead of the game again, and my thumbnails are the flashiest over on YouTube, or the way we're wording the tweet is precise so that it maximizes search engine optimization. But I think that I am concerned with making sure that I'm giving the best to those who are listening, and not just because I want their business, because of course I do. That's an American idea. I want to make sure that I'm giving them what it is that they're paying for, they're subscribing for. But it also makes me a little bit nervous as to kind of when my big moment is going to come where I'm going to goof it up, where I'm going to have to issue like the corrections, where I'm going to have to essentially tell people that I wasn't on the ball that day because I got too invested into a story. I know that I don't know, maybe it is or isn't exactly couth to bring this up, but how do you guys deal with over on Ruthless and over with Cavalry? How do you deal with the idea that someday you might give a bit of bad advice or you might get something wrong?
I don't think getting things wrong is a problem, as long as you're willing to admit when you do. When you lay a lot of tape, if you're going to lay a lot of tape down, on a show multiple days a week, you're going to get something wrong. But getting things wrong is human. I mean, being honest with the audience about that is more important than being right all the time. And I think people have gotten obsessed in media with the latter, and that has driven their ego to the point where they don't self-reflect and they don't question their own assumptions. And that's why they run with stories that are not true.
Michael Duncan, are you suggesting that the media is obsessed with their own egos? I can't. Are you suggesting that Jake Tapper, who has just, again, for the 18th time said journalists, questioned the president?
Asking questions is literally our job. Demanding facts and answers instead of just taking a president's word for it.
After the Biden years, are you suggesting that perhaps he is a bit of an ego there? I'm shocked.
It's remarkable, and now that he's written this book, he's this truth sayer who's going to lecture the media on their own biases and what they're missing in the news day to day, which I find endlessly hysterical. I also just think sort of like, you're a Midwest guy, I'm a Midwest guy. I think their whole attitude about people is fundamentally different than the way we grew up. And it's why the media is often very out of touch with the Midwest. Is the Midwest is a very common sense place, I
think that this kind of common sense idea, it it really shows in the way that they're responding now that a lot of us are starting to kind of recognize and notice. They made the whole big, Alex Thompson and Tapper released the book Original Sin. And now when CNN hops in to cover some kind of a story about Biden or Trump, have you noticed like a slight bit of hesitation that maybe CNN's not on the breakingest of breaking side? Like Tapper's not the first out anymore out of the gate. I mean, he still does come out and say some things, but there's like this awkward half step where they're not sure if 6 months or not even 6 months. How long has it been since the book released? Well, like 2 months. If that is a month, man, the news cycle is just way too fast. Well, however long it's really, really quick, couple of weeks at the most, that there's like a little half step. They're not sure if they can already start moving on. There's a real discordance here where a lot of us, when the common sense Midwest, as we'd say, we would suggest that you would make a little of that more permanent. You would be a little slower to the roll here. But it seems you have some of these corporate media entities who aren't sure whether they should hang on, wait a second, or whether they should just go back to full steam because, hey, after all, the midterms are not that far off.
Yeah, I think part of it is the media's had a little bit of soul searching internally, and they're trying to recalibrate their news product. I think they obviously know they screwed this up. They don't want to actually take the blame for doing so, but I think it's going to impact their work product here moving forward. I don't think they're really going to be ready to move on until they can tell their viewers and listeners what they want to move on to in Democratic politics.
And I think we'll be on with Zoran Mamdani.
Yeah, right, exactly. And they're a little uncomfortable with that, I think, and they don't want that to be the standard bearer of what the Democratic Party fights for in the midterms. But they're trying to figure out what that next thing is. And I don't think they can truly put the Biden story to bed until they find that.
That's true. Last question here on this side, just because this cracks me up. Were you expecting Hakeem Jeffries to be the Democrat that's like, I don't know, I don't really want to endorse him just yet?
I saw his interview, and what was fascinating about it is he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. He's like, I'm not ready to endorse him, but I'm also not ready to write off this socialist agenda, right? And so it's like he's trying. I mean, part of that is just the job of a leader who's got
when coalitional speaker, you represent all of the parts of the country for your party, of course.
So you just got to make sure you say a lot of words, but actually say nothing, right? And so he's kind of doing
former
that.
Academic. That's like our specialty. you cracked an academic paper. Well, I'm sorry, you've read Ketanji Brown Jackson's opinion in the Supreme Court. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, right.
Michael Dunklin over at Ruthless Podcast, also at Cavalry. Dude, thanks so much for taking a moment. And sorry about the bird distraction. I said we were going to cut that out, but I'm not really sure how we can do that.
No, I think you should leave it in. It gives personality to the show. I loved it.
We'll tell people it's the deep state, and they're coming after us. All right, we'll be back in just a second. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. It's great to have on Representative Keith Self out of Texas 3rd Congressional. A lot of stuff going on, Representative. No lazy moments this summer. What do you say?
We're working it hard, as you say. Well, hopefully we will get to a good place.
Well, let's talk about this good place because it's all about reconciliation. The Senate has been making amendments, slinging them through the chamber like they're hotcakes. I tell you, heading back over to the House. Right off the top, what do you anticipate in this last little bit of reconciliation before the kind of 4th of July goal?
Well, to tell you the truth, the Senate just now finished, and apparently they have the votes, so they should be voting any minute now.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 50. The Senate being evenly divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative. The bill as amended is passed.
I think the Rules Committee will go into to committee hearing immediately, so we could be voting on this maybe tomorrow. So we'll see. But what I expect, if what we're hearing is correct, the Senate will be hard-pressed to reach the framework that the House sent over to them. Look, Speaker Mike Johnson has been very clear that the Senate should not send us a materially different bill than what we sent to them. If they do, that very narrow margin in the House is probably suspect. So we're going to wait to see exactly what's in it, what the last text is, and then we'll make our decisions.
So when it comes to those decisions, everybody wants a different kind of a piece in this bill. There's a lot of hopes and dreams, and if you'll excuse the effrontery here, a lot of fantasies that we all have about what this bill should look like, and that just isn't the case because, unfortunately, politics gets pragmatic real quick when you have a representative from New York facing off against a representative from Texas, though they may be in the same party. So what do you say about some of the kind of the muling about, man, I really wish, woulda, coulda, shoulda, that this bill did this, that, and the other? What's the primary goal for the majority of people in the country right now?
That is a great question, Tony. And frankly, it has to do with two things. First of all, the tax cuts. The average American family needs those tax cuts to be extended. Excuse me. The second thing, though, is we must not drive this nation deeper into debt. Look, the House bill in and of itself said that we were going to continue, accepted the fact that we were going to continue $2 trillion a year in additional debt, which right now stands at $37 trillion. So if the Senate bill that comes back accelerates that beyond $2 trillion a year, we'll go from 37 across 50 real quick. In fact, some of the figures, and again, I don't know the final outcome from the Senate, but the figures before that were we would go to close to 50 in just 4 years. So that's a concern. So it is a two-headed bill. Tax cuts, yes. We do not need to add to the debt to accelerate the debt.
Representative, there is something that often comes to my mind when I hear these kind of discussions, when I look at these kind of bills, and this kind of pragmatism that is understood. It reminds me of driving on the interstate with a donut tire. You're not really supposed to be driving on the interstate. You're not supposed to be picking it up to fast speeds with a spare tire, especially not the donut riding there. But if you have to, you got to make it home. Then we're going to drive as slowly as possible. And that's really the vibe that I get from this particular bill. Yes, it's going to increase spending, but it could be a lot worse. And so we're trying to keep some of that stuff tapped down. At least that's what I'm hearing from a lot of members in the House. Is there any merit to that?
No, I don't accept the word pragmatic because
Understood.
Congress is not pragmatic. There's one thing that both parties do, and that is spend money. The Democrats want to spend it on the social programs. The Republicans want to beef up areas that are our concern, national security for one. But both parties are responsible for that rapid growth in debt that we've seen over the last 10, 15 years. The inflation was because of it. You can't dump $9 trillion into the economy
and just expect that not to have any impact
without getting inflation. Absolutely, It's going to have an impact.
So then if we're looking at the massive increase of the debt, if both parties are essentially saying, give me all of the spending, more of the spending, throw it in, shovel it in just to my area, well, at some point, although we talk about the trillions of dollars in debt, and it loses a bit of its impact because the numbers become so large, people's minds stop wrapping their heads around them, which is, of course, a tragedy. There are going to be measures in which the money does run out. And we start talking about all of these austerity measures for entitlement programs. The 2030s are approaching, whether or not we like to admit it. What do you see? Is there anything at all that we will do before these austerity measures hit? Not could do, but again, Congress isn't pragmatic. Are we just going to get to the 2030s and start pointing fingers?
Well, pragmatic is look at the bond market. The president doesn't control the bond market. Congress doesn't control the bond market. The bond vigilantes control the bond market. When they lose confidence in the full faith and trust of the United States government, you're going to see that may be what forces us to take those measures that you call pragmatic. Because if our debt payment, the debt rate goes from 4% today to 6, 7, 8%, that will force us to do something. But other than that, I see no appetite in Congress for controlling spending, really. This big, beautiful bill, depending on who you talk to, to include the White House numbers from the economic advisors, they're not good. They're not pretty.
Yeah, there really is a lot of elements that we could dig in here, and I do want to hear more about your perspective on this. Firstly, I like that, not futzing around the edges and just saying no. Congress likes spending money, and I enjoy that. I will talk about one provision that I enjoy on perhaps a different incentive measure from the Senate, which would be removing some of the grants for solar. Here in my home state of Indiana, a lot of other states across the Midwest and the Great Plains, people are taking some of these government subsidies to remove beautiful arable farmland and just stitching them with solar panels from here to Cancun. And it's ridiculous for a number of reasons, one of those being the agricultural backbone of the country. That subsidy, that provision for IRA solar and wind credits, they're no longer in the Senate. At least it's moving towards termination. What do you think on that? Is the House going to let that slide?
We have got to stop the entire Green New scam. I will tell you, there are perverse incentives in the Green New scam. We need to stop that. I'm all for all energy, but frankly, they need to stand alone because that's become
a grab bag. That's become a grab bag. To your point, though, right? They do need to stand on their own. The governor of Indiana, though, I like a lot of what he does. Former Senator Mike Braun. He recently came forward to talk about energy, and he starts saying, well, we need all energies, like a grab bag. Like, instead of addressing the criticisms towards the failed wind and solar companies, instead of addressing how, like you said, a lot of these industries which need to stand on their own, they can't survive without subsidies. I'm tired of just I like everything, so that if someone has solar panels on my roof, they won't send me an angry letter. But in reality, if you can buy the solar panels, great. If they work, fantastic. I'd love to see the technology be better. Former science teacher here. I'd love to see nuclear plants over half the country. But I mean, my goodness, man. I mean, being from Texas yourself, I'm not interested in subsidizing solar and wind off the backs of our oil and natural gas industries.
Well, frankly, we're talking about energy that is dispatchable and reliable. That's fossil fuels. That is oil and gas. Solar, it should shock no one that the sun goes down at night and batteries are not there yet. So, we need to get real about wind and solar. I live in a state where there's a lot of wind. Some states don't, yet they build these windmills that the environmentalists look away from as they kill endangered birds, eagles, other endangered species of birds. So there is a lot of things that we could look at here with the wind and solar. But frankly, again, back to remember Solyndra? I think it was the Obama administration that gave them billions of dollars, and they still couldn't hold it. So the wind and solar, we're figuring out, and we figured out in Texas, I hope, that we need reliable, dispatchable energy, which is oil and gas, and if we were to go that way, nuclear.
So this is one of the things that really, if we're going to spend money, and boy, are we going to spend money, then I would at least like to see these monies spent benefiting Americans in as close to the long term as we can get. Infrastructural improvements that aren't Pete Buttigieg spending $7 billion on a couple of charging stations at rest stops. I think that if you actually take a look at building some in the future projects, is there anything in this bill or anything from your colleagues that looks towards the future in terms of long-term improvements on American infrastructure, be it energy or transportation, in, the next 10 years?
No, I think most of what we are focused on is stopping the insane spending on things that we should not be spending money on.
Gotcha.
So that's the key to this bill, because everybody is, frankly, look, the conservatives want less. Most of the people that are voting on this bill, regardless of party, are going to be voting for more. That's the simple fact. We want less. Now, less, in my mind, would be going back to pre-COVID spending numbers.
Well, yeah, but also you have experience taking money down. Right? Wasn't it the county that you presided over, like a decrease in taxes by like 30% or spending by 30%? Did I have that right?
Absolutely. Very close to 30%. We reduced the tax rate. So, yeah, I'm very proud of that. We also were the first county in the nation to put our checkbook online. So transparency and tax cuts, both were in Collin County, Texas. Very proud of that record.
Sorry, I was trying to pull from memory. I had a couple of notes scribbled here. Perhaps I should have made these notes a little bit more legible during the interview, but I understand the wanting to bring back to pre-COVID spending levels. I also want to see that. It's something that a lot of people are desirous of. But again, given that congressmen are more often trying to spend money for their particular constituents and the money is already there, for those who are on the radio, those were some very expressed scare quotes. It's just not likely. So with this coming back to the House, do you see any final tweaks, changes, oiling, squeaking before it heads off to the desk? Or is, again, I know you said that you don't really know until you have what it is in front of you, but any last bits of polish that you can put up on it before it heads to the desk?
Well, yeah, I think so. And I think the Speaker is committed to, he doesn't want to ping pong back and forth with the Senate. But he knows that he is committed to the House framework, which means we need to do a better job on the Green New Scam, which means we need to do a better job on Medicaid. Instead of paying $9 to the states for every able-bodied person and only $1 for, actually up to $1 for people who are supposed to be on it, pregnant women, seniors, disabled, and children, that's insane. That ratio is insane. So there are things that we need to do because, again, the Speaker had a one-vote margin when it came over. So he's got to be very careful on the framework. Look, the REINS Act. I hope that we can get the REINS Act back in it, which says we will actually control regulations. There's a way to control regulations in the REINS Act. It's an important bill. So yes, there are things we can do. Do we have the political will is the question.
I think that's something that the entire party is probably going to have internal discussion over in the next 4 to 5 years. But that kind of political Monday morning quarterback nonsense, that can certainly follow later. Representative Keith Self from Texas 3rd, really enjoy the no-nonsense approach. It's very easy to hop onto an interview and give the soft, warm, kind of fluffy answers. And I've never, ever expected that from you. And well, you deliver. So thanks again.
Thank you.
We'll be back in a second. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
All right, let's do just a smidgen of bonus tonus here because we've got a couple of things saved up that are definitely going to be worth your time. So first of all, for producer Nick, and I'm excited to say, robot sports in Beijing is returned. So remember, there was robot boxing to show off these brand new super duper ultra robots in China. Now, well, they're playing soccer. So, starting off the bat strong, the little AI robots are being taken out on stretchers when they fall over. So far, it's very close to regular soccer. Oh, that's Chinese rapping? Oh, he wrecked himself. It's like Riverdance mixed with... Did the ref just push one of the robots over? And now the stretchers are out again. Does Beijing know how soccer works? There it is. I love it. The ball is gone. They're just angrily debating. Yeah, again, I don't think that the Beijing AI is anywhere close to where it's supposed to be. Number two, apparently Fox News approached Governor Janet Mills, Maine's governor, about cocaine today, given the cocaine scandal that she had during the 80s and the 90s. And it took her off guard. I do love watching people can't answer questions about their history as though they think we all forgot.
Is sniffing cocaine at work a human right, Janet? How much more does an 8-ball cost with inflation? Is sniffing cocaine at work a human right, Janet?
She's still going. I love it. It never stops being funny. It never stops being funny to me. All right, if you or a loved one are turning 65 soon, you're going to want to hear about how our partner, Chapter Medicare, is saving people thousands of dollars. Unfortunately, being the government boondoggle that it is, and a required one at that, Medicare enrollment is a maze of misinformation. And the victims are, of course, everyday Americans, parents, grandparents, including those in Chapter's co-founders' lives and families. That's why they vowed to go the extra mile and do right by their consumers. Chapter's advisors listen carefully, they compare every plan, and they help you maximize your savings. People are relieved when they talk to Chapter, even making a typically annoying process easy and enjoyable. Working with Chapter is simple, helps saves a ton of money, and saves you days and days of annoying ad-filled internet research. You know how much it stinks. These guys aren't going to push you to buy a plan that you don't want because they are not funded, they're not paid to push you towards a specific insurance company. Their support is completely free. So if you're turning 65 soon, call them up. You won't regret it. Call the number on the screen. That's 415-787-4074 or visit askchapter.org/Tony. askchapter.org/Tony. There are a couple of other phenomenally painful moments of the bonus tonus selection for today, but none are worse than Elizabeth Warren running around the Capitol building, telling people to, I kid you not, call 11-year-old girls.
Just tell me, I just want one Republican who will call somebody in a nursing home and tell them where they're supposed to go.
Hello, is Joe Biden there? I just would like to take a moment to tell him that he needs to go back to his room and quit sniffing the visitors.
Yes. When the Republicans have cut the support, and they're saying 1 out of 4 nursing homes will end up closing.
All right, you've heard the prediction here, folks. 1 out of 4 nursing homes is going to close. They're going to shutter their doors. Old people are going to be roaming the streets in wild gangs, searching for prunes and Percocet.
Yes. Hey, tell me, call the kid that I met with last week. Adorable girl, Vivian, 11 years old. Just call and tell her why it's more important to give tax cuts to billionaires than it is to make sure she still gets her wheelchair and her therapist and her home health aide.
Elizabeth Warren is worth buku bucks. You don't see her saying, yeah, I will make sure that Vivian, the 11-year-old, is taken care of. I am worth a lot of money. I will take care of it. If these Republicans won't, I will. No, they're like, we're going to hold up a phone and record Vivian trying to crawl around with no wheelchair. Because apparently when your Medicare stops or your Medicaid stops, they come over and they're like, is that your wheelchair? It's like a repo squad. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. They do this every time. And by the way, this is the real reason that I'm not as stressed out about the big, beautiful bill and how much it's spending and how much it's saving and all that other stuff. We do this every single time. We do this once a year. We all gather around for reconciliation and we have a big fight, and it's going to be, oh, the United States is going to collapse from all of the spending. Oh, no, everyone betrayed me. Oh, the Republicans are going to kill everyone. There's going to be death in the streets. Nursing homes are going to close. Lizzo's going to get thin. And every time, every single time. And so far, only one of those has kind of become true. So I got to say, I'm just not buying it this time. We'll be here next year. You know we will. Next year, the same thing. There'll be the new ultra closeout super sale on American democracy. Oh man, if we don't give Colombia condoms, then who knows what could happen? By the way, they are in fact blaming the Trump administration on men in Africa getting AIDS. I'm serious. Right now, there are news articles from places like Reuters, Politico, and CNN that are suggesting that in Africa, men whom are having gay sex are giving each other AIDS because that's most often how AIDS is distributed. And they're saying because the Trump administration did not send over a bunch of prophylactics to Africa, that this is giving people AIDS. I mean, my God, can you not? Can you not? No, we're going to do every year. And by the way, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you'll have Elizabeth Warren, no matter how old she'd be, 115 out there. Hey, I want you to call Vivian. She's 21 by now and let her know this year they're going to get her. Stop it. Get some help. Need that Michael Jordan PSA for drug use to play. Now, I'll give Warren this credit. Two more things here for bonus tonus. I will say that at least she's not running around telling everyone not to have children whatsoever and abort everything, because the youths on the left, the Zora and Mamdani fans, they're having a real one.
I'm so pro-choice, I don't even think it's pro-choice anymore. I'm pro-abortion. Yes, go get one. Everybody should get an abortion.
Now, I was told no one was saying this. I was told no one's pro-abortion. No one's pro-abortion.
Everybody should have one. Nobody should be pregnant. We should stop having kids.
I've got good news for you. I'm never going to be pregnant. I've got good news for you. There is an entire half of this country that has no medical ability to have children. They're called dudes, and they're no longer competing in women's athletics at UPenn.
Stop having kids. Go get an abortion. What are you doing? Why are you pregnant? Why are you pregnant?
The video just cuts off aggressively. That connection was aborted. Again, you continue to just go head over heels into this nonsense and watch more and more and more. Though you claim that, we got the youths out into the street. He won a primary. That's somehow going to catapult individuals into making this garbage normal. It's not. And one of the best guys, when the Democrats just go way too far, which is now every single day, one of the best guys that categorizes this, not from the right, but from the left, is none other than Stephen A. Smith. Here you go.
When you see him being endorsed by AOC, when you hear the Jasmine Crockett's of the world and people like that going off, listen, I respect where your heart is. But at the end of the day, what you're really, really saying is, we want America to burn down.
Yes.
And we want to have something completely new.
Yep.
Why are people from all over the world trying to come across our borders? Because it's the land of opportunity. And if you're Mamdani and you're saying, no, because I saw him on national television indicate this. I'm not quoting him verbatim. So if I misquote him in any way, I apologize, but I don't think I am. I saw him on NBC this past week and Meet the Press.
By the way, I do love the comment from Anil the Channer here. He's always so loud. Yes, he has one of two volumes, Whisper Quiet or Courtside Announcer. One of the two. He is correct, by the way. I do enjoy the individuals that come to this country and say, this is a terrible place, we need to burn everything down. Or again, like Mamdani, the son of a professor at Columbia University and a Hollywood producer telling us that, the American's a terrible, terrible place. After all, someone called me something racist after 9/11 when I was 8, probably. Okay. Okay. Good for you. The rest of the country is noticing the divide. There's a Morning Consult poll that came out. Actually, I want to make sure that I get this. I want to get this right. Who is the one that came up with? It's a Gallup poll. Excuse me. In 2001, 90% of Republicans said they were proud to be an American. In 87% of Democrats in 2001 said that they were proud to be Americans. Now, that was before the 9/11 terrorist attacks, by the way, just in case you were wondering, because it did in fact go up to like 98% of Republicans and like 97% of Democrats near the end of 2001 into early 2002. Now, in 2025, Republicans have actually increased. 92% of Republicans now say they are proud to be Americans, whereas only 36% of Democrats say they are proud to be Americans. Got to be honest with you. There are all kinds of countries all over the world you can go to. Feel free. In the case of Ilhan Omar, who celebrated Somali Independence Day today on her Twitter feed, I will gladly pay for your first class ticket, your luggage, and your husband brother to go with you. By all means, please, get. Because if you really want to be somewhere else because this place is so bad, by all means, go ahead. But how could you not accept criticism? There's a difference between accepting certain points of criticism in the United States of things that should change. I do think there are things that are here that should change, but I recognize this is the best country that has ever existed on the face of the earth. And it is far better than any other country on this planet, bar none. The ideas that others are bringing to the table are not new and exciting ideas. They're things that have already been tried, already failed. One of the Krasenstein goofballs over on the left was trying to convince Elon Musk that he should fund guys like Andrew Yang, that bold new candidate. Remember right when we were getting ready for 2020? Andrew Yang, he's going to give everyone $1,000 a month. We did that for 2 weeks, and the inflation skyrocketed. And how do we know that that would happen every single time? Well, because people have tried it before. Other countries have tried it before. It kind of fails. We have, again, Ecclesiastes is quite correct when it says there is nothing new under the sun. America so far is the best that we have seen in individual liberty and the federal republic system. So that stuff said, Republicans around the country are going to be celebrating a very happy 4th of July, and independents are going to notice, the very few independents that are left. The Democrats are going to walk around crying that you need to call 11-year-old girls and tell them that they're going to die. Gee, I wonder what's going to be more popular. The open communist from New York City or every other kind of American out there. So I might go visit Alligator Alcatraz in the Gulf of America. So that stuff said, we'll be here tomorrow with a little bit more on New York's favorite communist. I've seen enough. I have. And we've already got the entire show for tomorrow written. Ron Coleman's going to be stopping by. It's going to be a good one. We'll see you then. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.